Yep. All right. Nope. Still hearing it. Well, we welcome you to a Tuesday edition of The Cash-In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Yeah, you got to figure it out, Justin. You got to kill that programming because we're hearing two different things going out over the air. There you go. See, it's gone. I hope I'm still here. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of The Cash-In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. The telephone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Say hello to our new engineer-producer. He's working his first night on the show with me. That would be Justin. Justin, welcome. Thanks for being a part of it. We got a lot to do over the next 3 hours tonight. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa continues to be a big story. Now there is some suggestion that, not necessarily the fact that he has this concussion, but how long he may have played with it, basically the entire second half of the Dolphins' loss to the Packers, and what all that might mean. Chris Perkins of the Sun-Sentinel, who does a terrific job. He's a Dolphins columnist for that fine publication. He will join us coming up 32 minutes from now. We'll get some thoughts from him on what all this means for the Dolphins organization, for Tua, and a whole bunch more. We'll continue the conversation on Tua on the other side, and the other big NFL story of the day, that is the retirement of J.J. Watt. That's coming up on the other side as well. Stick around, lots more to do. The Cash-In, we're just getting started on this Tuesday on SportsMap Radio. I'm still hearing... Okay, now I'm hearing a commercial. No, I'm hearing like double audio in my ear. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm hearing Sports Grid though. See, as soon as you turn, yeah, I'm hearing both. Well, turn your mic off for a second and I'll tell you what I hear. Yeah, I'm just hearing the commercial now. All right. We roll along on this Tuesday. You can let that music play a little. We like music on the show. It's good. Got nothing wrong with that. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. That's the phone number. On Twitter at the back page, you can also watch the show on Twitch, twitch.tv. Jason Page 77, if you want to see what I look like. Radio used to be theater of the mind. And it was always just, hey, you're listening to this person on the radio, and it's always so funny. I always mean to start the program with the top story of the day, and I always divert into something stupid like this. But I worked in radio from the time I was 17 years old. I'm 45 now, so you can figure out how long I've been doing it. And in radio, you used to listen to a voice and you'd imagine what that person looked like. And forever, every female growing up that I heard on the radio, I was like, wow, she must be beautiful. Listen to that voice. And then as I got older and started to work in radio, I started to work in radio with some of the people I grew up listening to. And I was like, oh, that's you? I know, it's the strangest thing, but it actually happens. They say never meet your heroes. They just didn't look the way you anticipate them looking. Look, I'm gay, so it doesn't matter what a woman looks like to me. But growing up and, not still knowing my sexual orientation and everything, you obviously I would look at women the same way most men do. But it was just a very strange thing that took place as I was growing up and started getting into radio. And you're like, wow, what does this person look like? And you're like, wow, that's what that person looks like. So anywho, Chris Perkins is going to join us in 26 minutes. We'll talk with him. Sun Sentinel in Miami does a great job on the Dolphins. He's a friend of the program, somebody I've been talking to for years when it comes to anything Dolphins related. And I have a very simple question I'm going to lead off with him when I talk to him. I'm going to say very simply, is it time for Tua to retire? And I think it's a very loaded question, but sometimes I think we could bury the lead and ask all these questions about, who's to blame and, how's this going to be handled going forward? And I'll get to all that. But I think the most simple, straightforward question we can ask anybody right now is, should Tua be retiring? And I don't think it's a crazy question when you consider what we discussed last night on the show, and that is the frequency with which concussions happen after you've had a concussion. And I was listening, something struck me this morning. I was listening to, I happened to turn on CNN when I got out of bed, which was late this morning. It was already afternoon on the East Coast when I got out of bed. And I was listening to Christine Brennan, a longtime columnist at USA Today. Does a terrific job. I'd love to get her on the show. In fact, somebody I have a lot of respect for. And I really only put people on this show that I have respect for. I don't just put people on for the sake of putting people on, which is why I do have so few guests. I could do one different guest an hour every night. I choose not to because I'll only put people on whose work I respect, whether it be past, present, future stars of the industry. So Christine Brennan said that there's a lot of, questions that I think the Dolphins and the NFL have to answer when it comes to the latest concussion for Tua, because he went down in a heap and slammed his head on the turf in Miami in that loss against Green Bay. And even though he didn't show symptoms consistent with a concussion, given his history, you would have think they'd pull him off for at least a play and have a conversation. And then as I started to do some research today, as I was working on the program, I came across the comments from Dr. Sills, Dr. Alan Sills, who is the NFL's chief medical officer. And I found some things that when it comes to the NFL's concussion protocol, two things that stood out to me in his statement that I find extremely disturbing. The terminology used by Dr. Alan Sills in talking about why they thought everything was handled properly and on the up and up in Sunday's game against the Packers. So they said, what our spotters, and this is a quote from the statement from Dr. Alan Sills, NFL's chief medical officer. What our spotters and our unaffiliated neuro doctors are looking for is any blow that transmits force to the head or neck area, followed by that injury behavior. And by injury behavior, they mean somebody stumbling, eyes rolling back in your head, your fingers clutching, the things that we find that we usually see in concussion patients or those who, victims that have suffered concussions. And that terminology unto itself becomes problematic when you start talking about concussions now. Because you could have slammed your head on the turf the way that Tua did on that play where he almost looked like he was hogtied and his legs couldn't move and he went down and his head bounced off the turf. He might have gotten up and hopped right up. That doesn't mean he didn't suffer a concussion. And for somebody who has already suffered at least one concussion this year, and I think we all assume he suffered two because there was the one that was undiagnosed, which then led, I think, to the reaction, and not just what I think, but what we saw in the second concussion where he kind of corpsed up and his hands sort of clammed up in that defense pose that we know now is so prominent with head trauma. But if the NFL is saying that it's not enough to have force to the head or neck area, that you need to have that followed by this secondary behavior, which constitutes being put into, the tent and, then they go and look at you and decide if you've had a concussion or not. That's not going to do it. That's not going to cut it anymore. Especially, I think every case, I think all of these things and trying to fit a blanket, put some sort of blanket definition around what constitutes somebody going into concussion protocol or pulling them off the field or what the spotters do. I think some of it has to be subjective and some of it has to be based on the player involved. How anybody seeing Tua go down in that spot. Now, I didn't watch every snap of the game, so I didn't know about this play until this morning when I was watching television and they showed it. Because Sunday was Christmas and, I'm traveling around. I'm going from house to house, things like that, for different get-togethers. But to me, it's problematic when you're not handling these things on a case-by-case basis. The way you would watch Tua Tagovailoa is not the same way you might watch Daniel Jones of the Giants or the same way you might watch, pick a player that hasn't had concussions, Brock Purdy or something like that. You have to watch every situation differently. And for the NFL to simply say, we didn't see anything. But you saw a guy that's already had at least one concussion this year slam his head on the turf. And now we know that the next day he's exhibiting symptoms of a concussion. Shouldn't that tell the NFL unto itself, we've got to change again? And I get that this is a fluid situation and that we're learning new things about concussions and CTE and brain trauma, that we're learning all these different things every day. So I'm not saying there should be a perfect one solution fits all situation. I'm not saying that. But now the NFL has to address the possibility that guys are slamming their head on the turf, not exhibiting concussion symptoms, but still have a concussion. What if he had taken another hit yesterday where he slammed his head? Again, not yesterday, but Sunday. And I pointed this out on yesterday's show. You could have watched a man die on television on Sunday. And I don't think that's being dramatic or hyperbolic in the least. And I keep coming back to this, and it makes me so angry. But the only way, I will keep saying this, nobody ever has foresight in these issues. When do we change drunk driving laws? When a drunk driver gets behind the wheel and kills somebody. When do we start to change gun laws? When somebody goes into a classroom and shoots up a bunch of children. When do we change a policy on any number of things? It's always after the fact. It's always reactive versus proactive. And the league continues to be behind the ball on these things. And I fear the only thing that's going to change it is the worst case scenario. And it's a guy dying on the football field in front of 20 million people in prime time. That's the only thing that's going to change it. Not Tua corpsing up on the field and being carried off in the hushed silence of a stadium. No, the only thing that's going to change it is a guy dying. It's going to take one of these guys dying in front of a national television audience for something to change. And that shouldn't just bother the NFL. It shouldn't just bother the Players Association. It should bother anybody with a conscience at this point. And that makes me wonder, do we have one? Because we continue to watch this happen. And this 24-year-old kid who's going to have to be protected from himself. I'm glad he self-reported. But if they clear him from concussion protocol, he's going to be begging to be back out on the field. And there's no way, there is no planet, no league in which this guy should be allowed back on the field. I don't even know if they'd let a boxer fight after having 2 concussions over a course of a few months. And we're going to let him on a football field? And you know what we think of boxing and sports like UFC. They probably wouldn't let Tua fight. But this league's going to let him keep going out there and smashing his brains in. It's an absolute disgrace. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who's to blame? Is anybody to blame? No one ever is to blame? I don't know. I'll get to J.J. Watt. We'll get to our live betting game of the night. We got a couple to choose from here in the late window as it opens up. Keeping an eye on a couple of games as well. Talk about that as we continue on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page. This is SportsMap Radio. By the way, when we do countdowns, Justin, when we do countdowns, you can give me a 20 and a 10, and that's it. Yeah, I don't need every 5 seconds. So I hear you're a play-by-play guy. Did a lot of play-by-play in my career. I did the Atlantic League for the Newark Bears when they still had a franchise. I did the UFL when the UFL was around for 2 years, about 10 years ago. I did the play-by-play voice for the Hartford franchise. I did college basketball at Central Connecticut State University. I did college football at Central Connecticut State University. Yeah, and I did double-A baseball for the New Haven Ravens. 22 years ago, I think. Yeah. Nice. Oh, that's cool. Nice. How old are you? Okay. What's this next game? I was 27, so 18 years ago. I had just been at Sirius Satellite Radio for a year when I was 27. Yeah. I was living in New York City. Company was only like 2 years old. I had been there since 2003. That was when almost nobody knew what satellite radio was. Yeah. Yeah, it was the really early days. "27 minutes past the hour. We roll along. Want to be a part of the show? 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. I mean, like the Joker says in Batman, what's it going to take to get you in the game? I want to know what it's going to take for the NFL to wake up on this, to be forward thinking. Again, the most two problematic things in the Alan Sills statement today from the NFL: that nothing would have triggered concussion protocol during the game against the Packers because he has to have had the headshot and then, wobbled off the field, or eyes rolled back in his head, or closed his eyes, or been unconscious. That without that, you can't do it. When people on TV, when people on social media are quicker to the draw than the NFL is, when you've got people watching the game on their television that don't have 70 angles of the game, but are watching the game on television, and with that, the ability to figure out something's not right here. When a guy that's had at least one concussion this year slams his head on the turf, and people on TV, people on social media watching the game on TV are quicker to point out that looks like it could have been a hit that would cause a concussion, that they're figuring that out before NFL staff or before, the brilliant Dr. Alan Sills. That's a real problem for the NFL. Now, Sills added it's not uncommon for people to present symptoms on a delayed basis, and that Tua should have been commended for reporting his symptoms on Monday. It doesn't change the fact that he dodged. Tua dodged a major bullet, because if he had been hit again on top of what had already taken place, you'd be talking about a situation where the guy is, potentially a vegetable on the football field. But then it gets worse. And this statement drives me bonkers, because it just goes to show that the NFL is trying to treat this with a one-size-fits-all sort of mentality. So this is further down in the statement from Dr. Sills. And again, I don't hear anybody talking about this, which is mind-blowing. Quote, "Anyone that's diagnosed with a concussion, whether it's their first or second concussion during the season, goes through the exact return to play protocol. Many steps involved in that. They have to return to their asymptomatic baseline with no symptoms. They have to go through a graded exertion protocol again with no symptoms. They have to be evaluated by the team neuropsychologist and undergo neuropsychological testing. That's compared back to their baseline from an uninjured state. They have to be seen by an independent neurologic consultant who evaluates them and make sure they agree that they're no longer concussed, and then the team medical staff also has to clear the athlete." That's what you got from Dr. Sills. So here's what they're telling you. Here's what the NFL, in all its brilliance, is telling you. It doesn't matter how many concussions you've suffered. The baseline to get back on the field is the same. When we know that guys who have suffered one concussion are 1 to 2 times more likely to get another. Guys who have suffered 2 concussions are 2 to 4 times more likely. Guys that have suffered 3 concussions are 3 to 6 times more likely. You see where this is going? So how could you have the same protocol in place for a guy that's already suffered a concussion as a guy who's never suffered one? When you know the guy that's already suffered one is already at a greater risk. It doesn't make sense. And I'm just some dumb layperson that barely graduated high school that isn't a doctor but knows where to stay at a good Holiday Inn. I know this. This is common sense. Again, if these guys can't protect Tua, then this kid's doomed. If you're using the same exact protocol to treat Tua as you are Brock Purdy, who's never suffered a concussion, then we're doomed. And there's just no way that this story ends well. Not just the Tua story, but anybody. There's no way there's a positive ending to this. It's an absolute disaster. We'll talk about it with Chris Perkins in 7 minutes. NBA, live betting. My favorite thing we do on the show, because it's what I get right more than anything. Paige's picks this year, 30-31. Live betting, we're probably running at about 75% right now on the winning side. The Knicks lead the Mavericks 104-95. This is a big game for the Knicks. Back-to-back losses after they won 8 in a row. So this is a big game for them on the road against a Dallas team. Has the same record as them. Mavericks beat the Knicks at the Garden just a couple of weeks ago. So this is a big game for the Knicks. It was one of the last games the Knicks lost, I think, before they went on the current run that they're on right now. 104-95, Knicks lead it. That's on our affiliate, actually, 97.1 The Freak. Our friends in Dallas who carry us. So you can always check out that show. The telephone number is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can always tweet at the show as well. Hit me up on Twitter, at the back page, again on Twitter, at the back page. I want to see what Chris Perkins says about this situation involving Tua and, what the future looks like right now for the Dolphins as a franchise as it relates to Tua, because I think there's a lot of different aspects to this story that nobody's talking about. And I think Chris is positioned as well as anybody to sort of address those things. Without Tua, can they win with Teddy Bridgewater? I think the answer is yes, but I'm not around the team on a daily basis. Live betting on the Knicks, they are minus 8.5 right now. If you're looking for value, think the Mavericks got a late run in them. Plus 1,200 on Dallas late in this game. 250 to go in the fourth. I'd say probably stay away from it. But that is up to you. There is college bowl games going on. I'm slipping a little bit, and I think our pool that I'm in, but we'll see how that shakes out. A whole bunch of NBA games just getting started, including the Warriors, who are back at home, which means they're winning. Because they can't win on the road, but they do all right at home. Beating the Hornets right now, 37-26. We'll continue to keep tabs on that. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We'll get to Perk coming up on the other side. Also, still to come in this hour, the strangest story you don't know you needed to hear. Yep, that's coming up as well. The cash-in on this Tuesday, a holiday week. Glad to have you with us on SportsMap Radio. All right, I got everything else on my side. Just play the rejoin in the open, and then I'll play the interview on this end. And you'll hear it lock out the same way every other interview locks out. Every other segment locks out. Yep. You'll hear it. You'll hear me say, SportsMap Radio, whatever. Yeah. Did they not show you that? Well, I'm glad that you figured it out, so that would have been a real bitch all night. Yeah. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show, good to have you all with us. We'll get back to the calls in a bit at 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also hit me up on Twitter anytime at The Back Page. So obviously, the Dolphins are big news right now with the team trying to get into the playoffs. Also, the injury to Tua Tagovailoa. Another concussion for him. Second time he's been in the protocol this year. Officially, although a lot of people believe he may have had a third concussion before he had the first, or a first concussion before he had the second, whatever you want to term it. So, thought it was a good time. Over at the Sun Sentinel, somebody we like to lean on when we're going to continue. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show, good to have you all with us. We'll get back to the calls in a bit at 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also hit me up on Twitter anytime at The Back Page. So obviously, the Dolphins are big news right now with the team trying to get into the playoffs. Also, the injury to Tua Tagovailoa, another concussion for him. Second time he's been in the protocol this year officially, although a lot of people believe he may have had a third concussion before he had the first, or a first concussion before he had the second, whatever you want to term it. So thought it was a good time to get this guy on. Chris Perkins is the Dolphins columnist over at the Sun Sentinel, somebody we like to lean on when we're going to talk some Dolphins. He joins us on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app on this Tuesday. Chris, I won't bury the lead here. Knowing what we do about the Tua Tagovailoa injury, and I mean, it's a blunt question, but should retirement be part of the conversation?
Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see till all the evidence is in and we know more facts. But look, everything is on the table right now, and that's kind of extreme, but that's the fact. That look, Tua Tagovailoa returning this season, that's a question mark. Tua Tagovailoa returning to the field at all, that's a question mark. But let's not be extreme. Let's see what the situation is when we know even whether he has a concussion right now. But look, we do know that this is the third head injury situation this season, right? Because of Buffalo, because of Cincinnati, and now because of Green Bay. So if you're the Dolphins and if you're Tua, the short term and the long term are both a question mark.
Yeah, I was watching Christine Brennan this morning. She was on CNN. It just happened to turn on CNN at the time that she was on. And she was taking Mike McDaniel to task over this idea that the team didn't know Tua had been concussed, despite the fact anyone watching the Dolphins game who saw him take that hit where his head smacked down on the turf, even people on social media looked at it and said, oh, my God, could have surmised there was a possibility of a head injury there. Do the Dolphins as an organization have some culpability here as it relates to Tua playing the remainder of that game with a concussion?
I don't know. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with Tua after the Buffalo game. And we saw that he was wobbly during that game, but we saw him in the post game. We saw him during the week. And so, look, I'm not the best judge of this. I'm not a neurologist. There are NFL people. Look, I will tell you this. I thought the NFL spotter jumped the gun in the Teddy Bridgewater situation against the New York Jets. And so that's one extreme, right, where they said that Teddy Bridgewater, after one play, he got that hit by Sauce Gardner. They said they saw a stumble when he got up to his feet. I didn't see a stumble. There's been a lot of video where we didn't see a stumble, and that's one extreme. And now you see this extreme where it looks like, maybe there was something that happened to Tua, but we don't know. Nobody flagged it, and so I don't know what the situation is with the NFL as far as the concussions or the head injuries or the spotter and anything like that. I think it's still a very unsettled situation, and you can call a lot of things into question. I don't know if the Dolphins would be culpable or the league or whoever, but I just think that it's a situation that's very fluid, and it's hard to identify what a flaggable situation is and what isn't.
I wonder, though, Chris, if now part of the calculus in this Tua situation, I wonder if some of the calculus on their part is the legal aspect, that there could eventually be. It doesn't have to be today. It could be a year. It could be 5 years from now, where if Tua's, walking around sipping peas through a straw, God forbid, the worst case scenario, that you are in a situation as an organization facing a lawsuit for hundreds of millions of dollars because somebody's going to claim you didn't do something right. So I wonder if beyond the protocol that's in place by the NFL, which, by the way, is insane that Dr. Sills today, the chief medical officer for the NFL, sat there and said, well, no, the concussion protocol doesn't change based on the number of concussions. Are you kidding me? How is it no different from concussion 1 to concussion 2 to concussion 3 that you would just have the same protocol in place? That seems nuts to me. But anyway, I digress. As an organization, and from a legal standpoint, looking down the road, do they treat this differently and try to force him to sit out the year, even if the protocol says he can return?
We don't know, Jason. That's the whole thing. That look, you could argue that the only reason that the league cares about head injuries is because of the CTE lawsuit and all of that, and that all of this is really because of that, and not because they truly care about the player. I don't know really what the situation is, but I know that it's a fluid situation, and it's things change, and we're kind of feeling our way through this process. So, as far as who is responsible and, who is culpable and who gets the ultimate responsibility for a player coming into a game where it's a questionable situation, I don't know. But, look, I will say this, that for a player such as Tua, who has had, this is his third, let's just say, head trauma situation, right? Buffalo, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and you're a young father and you do care about your child and being a father, you've got to concern yourself with your future. And so really, I think that that's kind of where things start, not the legal responsibility of the Dolphins or the league. It's with Tua and what you want to do for your organization or for your family. And I'm not casting a judgment right now. This is a serious, situation. I'm not saying whether he should lean one way or the other, but I'm saying that that's pretty much where we are with this thing. That we want to talk about football, and this is a football thing, but for Tua, there is a family thing riding on this. And so, strategically for Tua, is the quarterback sneak an option? Is the quarterback draw an option? Is a scramble an option? And if it's not, are you putting your team at a strategic disadvantage? And then are you, what about your family and your future? So I think for Tua, all of this stuff is on the table. And then for the Dolphins, do you sign them to a long-term contract? And then for the league, how do you, is the spotter responsible and all that? But really, let's boil it down to Tua, and what are you going to do for your family and for your organization? Do you do a quarterback sneak and all that kind of stuff? Jason, I think that's also on the table here.
Chris Perkins, Dolphins columnist, Sun Sentinel, joining us here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. You brought up so many good points in that answer. And as much as I agree with you that it's on Tua, sometimes the organization has to protect the player from himself. The same way a boxing trainer will tell the referee in a boxing match, hey, no, he can't go on, even though the boxer's sitting there going, oh, no, I can keep fighting. It's sometimes up to the trainer in that situation to protect the fighter. And in this case, it might be up to the Dolphins to protect Tua from Tua if he feels like, hey, I want to still go out there and play. And I thought you just brought up a very great point that I didn't even think about. Forget even just the Dolphins. Knowing what people know. I mean, we're watching Carlos Correa go through this whole thing with an ankle injury and teams not wanting to give him a long-term deal. What NFL team is going to look at Tua and say, we're going to give this guy a long-term contract, knowing if he has one more hit, he's, essentially a walking vegetable. That's something I hadn't really thought of, broadening this conversation out, but it's a great point.
Tua's got to think about this. The team's got to think about this. The league has got to think about this. And again, Tua's got to think about this as a father and a family man. And, I don't know, where you draw the lines between concussions and CTE, but there's evidence. And so Tua's got to take that into account. And so, there's a lot of levels to this, Jason. And so, as we think about this, we can think about this on a lot of levels, but there are a lot of levels to this. And I'm not sure that we've really been confronted with something along these lines in the, CTE concussion aware era. But this is a big test case for the Dolphins. And look, let me say this from the Dolphins organizational standpoint. You've opened a 2 or 3 year window when you acquired Tyreek Hill. You acquired Teron Armstead. You acquired Bradley Chubb. And you gave first round picks up. And you decided to go with Mike McDaniel as your head coach, and you decided to stay with Chris Greer as your GM. You're kind of committed now. This is a 2 or 3 year window. You can't make a whole lot of changes. If you bring in, there's been people on Twitter, hey, do you fire Mike McDaniel and bring in Sean Payton? Sean Payton can't bring in another quarterback. You don't have first round picks. So you're kind of committed. You're kind of dug in. If you're the Dolphins, you've got to kind of make this thing work. So tentacles that spread all around from this CTE concussion aware era, Jason, that we're thinking about right now, this quarterback pass driven NFL era, it collides with the concussion CTE awareness. We'll see what happens. It's a very interesting situation.
Can this team make the playoffs with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback?
I do think that they can. Yes,
I agree.
I agree. You do. Now, listen, I'll say this, that this is not on the backup quarterbacks. I wrote a column today. I think that really this is on the backup quarterback to put you in a position to win in the fourth quarter, these next two games, New England and the New York Jets. But the heavy lifting has to be done by Mike McDaniel, your head coach, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Teron Armstead, Xavier Howard. These are the guys. The backup quarterback puts you in a position to win in the fourth quarter. These other guys have to deliver these victories and get you to the playoffs. So that's the situation, and I do think that Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson, the rookie 7th round pick out of Kansas State, either of them could keep this team in it in the fourth quarter to win. It's up to the highly paid, high-profile guys to deliver the victory.
Last one before I let you go. In your mind, what is the common denominator beyond the quarterback play here in the downward spiral over the last month or so? What is the common denominator to you in terms of what's troubled this team?
Well, I think the offense, you're really a big play offense, and you're a one-dimensional offense, right? You rely on Tua to Tyreek Hill, Tua to Jalen Waddle, and that's it. And if I'm another team, if I can focus all of my attention on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you really can't beat me. You don't have a run game. You don't have other receivers. You don't go chain to chain to chain to chain. You go big play. And if I can shut down those two guys, I think I got a chance to beat you. And I think that's been what San Francisco and the LA Chargers and the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers have done, that we've seen them have big plays, but not consistent big plays on offense. The Dolphins have not controlled time of possession. If they don't have those big plays on offense, you shut that offense down, they're not going to outscore you. So I think that you've got to develop a run game, and you've got to develop a move the chains type offense, and that's when the Dolphins will be tougher to beat.
See how the Patriots handle it this weekend against the Dolphins and vice versa. Chris Perkins, Dolphins columnist, Sun Sentinel, giving us some time during a holiday week. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year in advance. We'll talk to you in 2023. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anytime, Jason.
We're coming back to wrap up the hour next. Absolutely unreal. Yep. That's my Knicks. I'm originally from Connecticut, but lived 10 years in New York. Grew up a New York sports fan. Giants. Yeah, I grew up Giants, Yankees, Knicks. Yeah. "12-3 run for the Mavericks in the last 30 seconds. They were down 9 with 30 seconds left. And Luka's got another 50 burger. Insane. He's just so good. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It's a lot of guys in the mix that keeps winning it, might win it again, and that's Jokic. Getting set to put the wraps on hour number 1 with a story you didn't even know you needed to hear. Anybody eat Cheez-Its? You said yes? You eat Cheez-Its? Well, you can't because Cheez-Its don't exist. I swear it. A representative. Yep, college football bowl game called the Cheez-It Bowl. Today, a Cheez-It Bowl representative cleared up something for college football fans all over the world. The representative told Carter Carrolls of the Tallahassee Democrat that there is no such thing as Cheez-Its. I kid you not. This is actually a story. Apparently, one Cheez-It is a Cheez-It. Anything more than that is called Cheez-It crackers, not Cheez-Its. I swear. Justin, did you know that? Wait a minute. You're going to tell me you knew. Wait a minute. You're going to tell me you knew that it's only that there is no plural of Cheez-Its? That's it. It's just an it, and that's it. Exactly. Cheez-It representative said there is no such thing as Cheez-Its. It's just Cheez-It crackers. So I know. It's almost as dumb as having a bowl game called the Cheez-It Bowl Game. Almost. I want to do like Jimmy Kimmel did and just have my own bowl game. Buy the rights to a bowl game. Imagine having that kind of stupid money that you could just buy a bowl game. Like, we'll just call it the Jason Page Bowl. The Cash-In Bowl. I can see it now. By the way, the Knicks are on the verge of one of the worst losses of this entire NBA season. We'll tell you about it coming up after the top of the hour. I'm Jason Page. You're listening to The Cash-In, hour number 1 in the books on SportsMap Radio. Yeah. Luka's got 55 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists. 56 now. Ridiculous. 2 minutes left in overtime. It's always great when the play-by-play guy doesn't know the name of the player. He called Mitchell Robinson Miles Robinson. Like, seriously? Come on. You gotta be shitting me. That's a guy. I mean, it's the Mavericks broadcaster, but you still got to know the name of the team's starting center. Guys are just putting up video game numbers around the league this year. Yeah, I don't know. I can't even keep up. It's ridiculous. Numbers are just insane. Well, nobody plays defense either. Teams don't play defense for, the first 42 minutes, and they start playing defense the last 6. It's like the All-Star game. He's got 56 points on 20 of 30 shooting. 14 of 20 from the line. He could easily have 60 if he made a few more free throws. He's played 45 minutes, too. He's played all but 5 minutes of the game. $129 left in overtime. 120-116 Dallas. He's not playing because he's hurt. Hour 2 of this Tuesday edition of the show. The Knicks were up 9 with 30 seconds to go in Dallas. 9. And they're going to lose. You just can't make this stuff up. I mean, come on already. I mean, how can you lose this game? Oh my God. I don't live and die with Knicks wins and losses, but this team loses so many close games. And lost in all of it. I mean, Luka Doncic is he's putting up video game numbers tonight. He's 20 of 30. There's a minute 30 left in overtime. He's got 46 minutes, 20 of 30 shooting, 14 of 20 from the line. If he made more free throws, he'd have 60 right now. He's got 56, and he's only taken 6 threes. You know, with those kinds of numbers, you'd expect to see a lot of threes. 18 of his shots are not threes. It's nuts. Including the game-tying shot at the end of regulation. So he's got a 56-point triple-double. He's got 56 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. It's the 4th time in NBA history somebody's got a 50-point, 20-rebound triple-double. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And I was talking about with Justin, our producer engineer, working the show tonight for us for the first time, working with me, and he said he's going to win the MVP, and he might. But the problem is there's so many guys putting up video game numbers, and they're on better teams. Now Luka's on a 500 basketball team because they don't have anybody around them other than Christian Wood. Unless you want to say Spencer Dinwiddie is cutting it for you. The Knicks don't have Jalen Brunson tonight, and you could see them really missing him in these key moments down the stretch. But you can't blow a 9-point lead with 30 seconds left. You just can't. Awful. All right, the mess that is the Denver Broncos. Ownership is spoken. What they're saying caught my attention. I'll tell you why next on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. My God, he can get any shot he wants. He's got 58.
Really have any direction as a team. They really don't. 34 seconds left. That is point number 59 for Luka Doncic in a 4-point Maverick lead. This is one of the most impressive games that I've ever seen anybody play. It has been off the chart good. 10 assists, 21 rebounds, 47 minutes. And now 60 points for the first time in Mavericks history. Up by 5, Dallas. Quickly, nearly lost his balance. He's chewing up a lot of clock. Miles McBride with the runner. 20 seconds left.
That's it. Ball game. God, such a bad loss. Luka goes for 60. 60, 21, and 10 with only 4 turnovers. Well, folks in Dallas may have just witnessed one of the all-time great performances, not just in Mavericks history, but in NBA history. And that's not being hyperbolic. We don't do hyperbole on this show. Luka Doncic in a Mavericks improbable 126-121 win. Remember when I said if you're looking for value, the Mavericks at plus 1,200 when there was about 3 minutes left in the game and they were down 9? Well, if you took that live bet, which, you know what? Thinking of the fact that it's the Knicks and they blow more late leads than just about anybody, excuse me, in the league, maybe I shouldn't be shocked. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. But these are the kinds of losses that, my God, I mean, look, in NFL parlance, it's Nathaniel Hackett, with what happens with Mike Thibodeau and this team and the number of late collapses. It's just so bad. Luka tonight, 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists in 47 minutes on 21 of 31 shooting. And the last shot he made, and I'm not talking about the free throws, the last shot he made over Mitchell Robinson, his 21st field goal of the night, was just insane. Because Mitchell Robinson's one of the better defenders that the Knicks have and one of the better defending big men in the league. But he was faced with an improbable task of trying to guard Luka in that spot. No Jalen Brunson for the Knicks tonight. And they felt it. You miss his leadership on the floor in big moments late in the game. And the Knicks just didn't have that tonight. And it showed in the result. But my goodness, Luka, what are you doing to us? Wow. 60, 21, and 10. Can anybody figure out the fantasy numbers? I mean, it's got to be a 100-point fantasy night. It's just, wowie zowie. He had 2 steals and a block, too. And he only had 4 turnovers. For a guy that has the ball in his hands that much, guy who creates his own shots, man, we were all bearing witness tonight. But I'll keep saying it. If they need him to score 60 and have a triple-double to beat the Knicks in overtime, you see the problem for the Dallas Mavericks. You can enjoy this and celebrate it, and we should, because it's one of the great performances you will ever see in a regular season NBA game. But if they need that from Luka in order to beat the Knicks at home without Jalen Brunson in overtime, you see the problem. Wow. Just amazing. 1-800-224-2004. Good to have you with us in the second hour of the show. 800-224-2004. And again, hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Here's a question for you. If I'm giving you the first pick in the NBA right now, if we're just drafting teams from scratch, and you've got the first pick in the draft, and it's of guys that are in the league now. I'm not talking about Victor Wembanyama being the number 1 pick in next year's draft, which he will likely be, and Scoot Henderson and all these guys, the kid from Purdue. I'm not talking about that. If I'm giving you the first pick in a brand new NBA, all the teams' rosters are hit from 0, and you've got the first pick, who are you taking? And I got to tell you, that is a tough question. It's a really tough question when you consider the talent in this league. And by the way, I'm not asking that question with an answer in my head. I'm just asking it because I don't have the answer. I can give you any one of 5 guys, and I don't mean the burger chain. I can give you a lot of different guys, but I don't think I can settle on one. And I know people say, well, what about Giannis? And what about Jokic? And what about Luka? Okay. Which one are you taking? 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. 800-224-2004. Tweet it at me as well. at the back page, if you want to hit me up there on Twitter, at the back page. If I give you the first pick and you could take anybody in the league right now, who are you taking? And I don't want to be prisoner to the moment and say Luka, but I mean, it might be. He's certainly in the conversation, isn't he? By the way, confirmed. Luka tonight, first player in the history of the NFL. Listen to this. First player in the history of the NBA. I almost said NFL. First player in the history of the NBA to have 60, 20, and 10. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's redonkulous. 60, 21, and 10. First time in the history of this league. And you think of some of the games that Wilt had. And some of the triple doubles. Yeah, Wilt never even did 60, 21, and 10. But, again, if we're having this conversation, and I'll get to the Broncos in a second here. I mean, you look at the numbers that Nikola Jokic is putting up on a nightly basis on a team that wins. I mean, you look at the stat lines for Jokic every night. I mean, let me give you this. From December 6th to the 25th, I won't count tonight because he only played. Is that game still going on? Yeah, Nuggets are still playing right now. So since the month of December, this is Jokic. You ready for this? 19, 8, and 8. 33, 10, and 9, 31, 12, and 14, 43, 14, and 8, 25, 11, and 8. The game against the Hornets on the 18th, which was insane, 40, 27, and 10. Against the Grizzlies on the 20th, 13, 13, and 13. Ho-hum, right? Just a triple-double, 13, 13, and 13. Trailblazers, 29, 8, and 11. And then against the Suns on Christmas Day, 41, 15, and 15. And he's doing it every friggin' night. And in that stretch where he's averaged 25 points, 11 rebounds, 9.5 assists a game, he's shooting 61.6%. That's why I say he might win he might win MVP again. It's just amazing. I mean, last year he averaged 25.5, 11, and 9.4 rebounds a game. I mean, he's come close to averaging a triple-double every year for the last 3 years. I mean, I maybe the conversation begins and ends with him. Going to go Giannis? Giannis, this year averaging 31, 11, and 5. And 53.6% from the field. And, everybody likes to say, Giannis this, Giannis that. When you match him up numbers-wise against Jokic and Doncic, I hate to say it, he's not as good as them from a purely numbers perspective. I don't think he is. I think he's really good. I think he's great. I think he's in the conversation. But, if you give me Jokic or Luka first, I'm probably taking them. They could play inside. I mean, Luka, he had 60 tonight, and he only made 2 3-point shots. In this era of the NBA, that doesn't happen. Although I guess look, if you look at Jokic and what I was just talking about with him, he doesn't shoot a lot of threes either. I mean, the most threes he attempted in a game in the month of December is 4. And he's putting up these gaudy numbers. He's another guy that can score inside the 3-point arc. I'm sorry. It blows your mind. These are video game numbers. Now, there's another conversation, though, to be had. And I know I'm supposed to talk about, I said I was going to talk about the stuff going on in Denver with the Broncos, and I promise I will. But I'm on this, and I got to stay on this because it's going to drive me crazy if I don't. But looking, at the numbers in the NBA this year, even a little last year, but even more so this year, these crazy high offensive numbers we're seeing. do we have to sort of flip the page when it comes to the statistics we're seeing and sort of this era of the NBA? Because it's almost like this last year we've gone into a new era. Remember, there's no more take fouls, and don't discount what the lack of take fouls has meant in terms of transition baskets and teams being able to run up and down the floor, because you can't use that take foul anymore. What's it, 2 free throws in the ball, something like that. You can't do the take foul. And I think that's obviously having a huge impact on what we're seeing in the transition game with these more athletic teams being able to get up and down the field, up and down the court. So we've almost entered this new era of the NBA that is just so offensive-minded that the numbers are going to be historically big to a point that I'm not calling it like the steroid era in baseball, because steroids was all about guys getting an unfair advantage, cheating, all of that stuff. I'm not saying that. But just as baseball had its steroid era, and I don't know what you'd call this era in the NBA, but it feels like we're in that era of the NBA where these are the kinds of numbers we're going to see. I've suggested all along, and I know the NBA wants to see this. They don't want to see, 100 to 97 games. They don't want to see 101, 95 games. They want 121, 116. They want 125, 119. More people, it's like chicks dig the long ball. It's the same mentality. Whether you get it by steroids or get it by changing the rules to the point that all we get is offense, 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 you're still accomplishing the same thing. Whether it's turning a blind eye to the steroid use in baseball or changing the rules and manipulating them to make it more offensive-minded. But it almost feels like we're entering this new era of basketball where you have to treat the statistics with a little bit of a tilted head because the game is so slanted in favor of the offense. Anyway, I'm curious to what you think. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And again, hit me up on Twitter as well, at the back page. I'm sure our Dallas audience will join us eventually before we get off the air tonight, and I'll be curious to see how giddy they are about this performance from Luka. We're back with more of the Cash In on this Tuesday on SportsMap Radio. Who are you taking first, Justin? Yeah. Yeah, he really is. Luka. Let's see. Wow. He's averaging but this is, I think, before tonight's game. He's averaging 32.8, 8.3 rebounds, and 8.7 assists, and he's shooting almost 50%, 49.9. That's his regular season numbers this year. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easily. His last 3 games, 50, 32, and 60. Oh, God. It's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. 60, 50, 41. And I'll say it again. I've said this before. Mavericks fans have no idea how lucky they are to go from Dirk, the era of Dirk, to the era of Luka. I mean, so many franchises have voids in between star players. Think about when Michael left, Chicago, when Ewing left New York, or Barkley left Philadelphia. And yeah, I mean, from Barkley, I guess you could say they went to Iverson. But, so many times franchises have gaps in between these sort of transcendent superstars. I'm just looking at Luka this year. He's got, let's see, from the start of the season, he's got a 41, a 44, a 42, another 42, a 41, a 50, and a 60. And I'm not counting all the 30s that are in there. It's just boggles the mind, the kinds of numbers he's putting up. And with all of that, Dallas is 19-16. Which tells you, I mean, and again, I don't know how they're going to judge MVP and all this stuff at the end of the year. That's such a bad, I can't get off how, I'm sorry. I know I sound like super ADD here. I can't believe how bad of a loss that is for the Knicks. It's such a bad loss. You're up 9 with 30 seconds to go and you lose. Oh my God. I could just hear the New York sports radio stations tomorrow morning. I could hear them tonight. Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so very bad. Oh, man. Speaking of great players, Lakers won tonight in Orlando, beat the Magic. LeBron LeBron is amazing. To be doing what he's doing at this stage of his career. 28, 7 and 5. Ho-hum. I know, when you hear it compared to the numbers that you see getting put up by Luka, it sounds paltry until you realize that LeBron has been in the league for 100 years. I mean, he's in his 20th NBA season. I mean, again, in his 20th season, and I understand, like I said before, you have to look at these numbers with a bit of a tilted head because of the way the league is the style of basketball being played around the league. But LeBron in his 20th season is averaging 27.8 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 6.6 assists a game. He's 9th in the league in scoring in his 20th season at the age of 37. And I'm sorry, you could say what you want about Jordan and the comparisons of Jordan and the comparisons of Kobe and those kinds of, all-time greats, guys that would be on the short list for Mount Rushmore in the NBA. None of them did this. None of them could do this. They had all hung it up. None of them were doing this, 20 years in. So when we have the conversation about the GOATs and all of this stuff and how many rings and all of that, it's all great. But just look at what LeBron is doing in his 20th season with all these young guys around him in the league. You have to say it out loud sometimes, I think, to understand just how magnificent it is. Because it's one thing to think, but when I tell it to you out loud, when I give it to you out loud, you have to view it in a different perspective. I mean, wow. The month of December for LeBron. And again, this is just to keep the Lakers afloat right now, right? I think they're 6-6 for the month. Yeah, they're 6-6 for the month. In his 20th season in the league right now, LeBron, this month, ready? 28, 29, 21, 23, 35, 33, 30, 33, 31, 34, 38, 28. In his 20th season in the league. Just stop it. I say this all the time. If you can't appreciate LeBron, it's a you problem. There's a YP and there's an MP. It's a YP if you can't appreciate LeBron at this stage of his career and what he's doing and just the greatness of LeBron. And everybody's, well, why do I got to see him? It's like people who complain about seeing the Yankees on TV all the time. Well, because they're one of the best teams in baseball every single year. That's why. Why is LeBron on TV all the time? Because in his 20th season, those are the numbers he's put up in the month of December. I mean, he's gone over 30 already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times this year. And remember, he sat some games out, so it's not as if he's playing all the time. And he's already gone over that. Like I said, if you can't appreciate it, totally on you. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can always hit us up on Twitter at The Back Page. If you got a thought, again, on Twitter at The Back Page. But Luka is the story for tonight. 60, 21, and 10 in a Mavericks overtime win over the Knicks, and just one of the worst collapses you'll ever see from an NBA basketball team. Up 9 with 30 seconds left. And that's why, 100 times you can go watch an NBA game, and 99 of them, a team down by 9 with 30 seconds to go is going to win. Why do you always watch till the end, though? That one time. One time. And that's what the Knicks were tonight. They were that one time. It just always seems to happen to the Knicks. That's the problem with it. Again, I can't wait to hear some reaction from fans of the Mavericks, because this was just insane tonight. All right, I promised I would talk about what's going on in Denver, because the situation got more intriguing today when team ownership spoke out on the firing of Nathaniel Hackett, and the general manager spoke out on the firing of Nathaniel Hackett, and some very interesting things that were said by management today and ownership, I think have to get your attention. Because we talked with Nick Ferguson on the show last night, our friend who used to play for the Denver Broncos, the former NFL safety, and a guy who hosts the Touchdown Denver podcast. He's very plugged into that team. He lives in Denver, so he's very much in the know about what's going on there. And he and I had a great debate last night. I don't even say a debate, but conversation about sort of who's to blame, what's wrong, how do you fix it. And the word fix, I think, is very appropriate for what we're going to talk about coming up here in a few minutes. Because the word fix was used in a certain context today. And I think I think it spells disaster for this organization when you're talking about the word fix in the context in which it was used by management. I'll explain what that is as we continue on the Cash-In. Good to have you with us on a Tuesday night, about halfway home. 1-800-224-2004. We'll come back, talk a little bit about the problems in Denver as we continue on the Cash-In. Good to have you with us on SportsMap Radio. Be right back. on you. Why's everybody always picking on me? By the way, if we get any phone calls, just send them to me in the text in a text message. Yeah, I'm saying if we get any, just send them to me in a text. Don't say them in my ear. Are the phone lines on? Because sometimes people forget to turn them on. Okay. Okay. Some of the reaction on social media right now to the 60-point effort of Luka tonight. And look, people get caught prisoner of the moment. So take it with a grain of salt when everybody, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. And look, it really is one of the great performances ever. I just caution that context is everything. Take a breath. Dickie V tonight, Dick Vitale. I've watched lots of hoops in my lifetime, and tonight I witnessed the greatest individual performance I have ever seen. Yes, Luka had a magical effort with 60 points, 20 rebounds, and 11 assists. Actually, it was 60, 21, and 10, I think. But anyway, in a game where each point and rebound assist was needed. That's a great point about what he did tonight. That it, so much of it was needed. Shams Charania, Maverick superstar, Luka Doncic, 60, 21, 10. By the way, he's got the most 50-point games now by a Maverick, and he's only 23 years old. If he stays healthy, he's going to be the greatest player in history, and that's saying a lot when you've got a Hall of Famer like Dirk, who played for the organization. There's just everybody's all over this right now. Just a monumental effort from Luka tonight. And again, and Dickie V brings up the greatest point. Needed every single one of them. But, you do have to, every game has two sides. Every coin has two sides. Every win has a loss. For every star, there's a player that bombs, that sort of thing. And I'll say it again. From the Knicks side tonight, that is as bad a loss as you can have. Especially when you're getting ready to bounce back after 2 straight losses after a winning streak. And the Knicks are back into this funk again where it's win a lot, lose a lot. There's just no middle ground with this team. And it's why they're a 500 team. Because they'll run off a bunch of wins and then they'll run off a bunch of losses. It's exactly what the problem is right now. But everybody's talking about Luka right now. There isn't a single person on... There's not a single person. Matt Weiner of NBA TV. Let's see. What did he say here? Weiner said... My computer is not cooperating. Luka leaves the game with an unprecedented triple-double. Oh, and the Mavs were down 9 with 33 seconds left. Yeah, we don't need a reminder on that. We could just celebrate what Luka's doing tonight. We don't need to talk about how bad it was for the Knicks. Let's just make it about Luka. That was the story. So I want to talk a bit about the Denver Nuggets. See, I've got NBA on the brain. Talk a bit about the Denver Broncos because what's going on in Denver right now has the makings and underpinnings of a situation where, and nobody's gonna remember what I say on December 27th, 2022 at 8:43 p.m. Pacific. But if you choose to, then great, and I'll be able to tell you I was right, 10 years from now. With the mentality that's in place with this organization and the way they're talking about Russell Wilson, and again, talk is cheap. It remains to be seen what they do beyond this year or next year with Russell Wilson and the 5-year, $245 million contract extension that he got. But the Broncos look like a team that is poised to be bad for a long, long time. Broncos CEO and co-owner, the new owner of the team, Greg Penner, said the team's next head coach will report directly to him. So basically, you're cutting the testicles off of your general manager, right? Let's be honest. You're neutering your GM already. You're going to have the head coach report directly to a CEO. I say this all the time, and I'll repeat it again. The job of a good owner is to put the executives below him in a position to succeed. Job of those executives is to put general managers in position to succeed. The job of the general manager is to put a head coach in position to succeed. Job of the head coach is to put his assistants and players in a position to succeed. All the way down, there's a chain of command. There is a successful model in place around the sports world where these things happen, and generally you wind up with successful teams. Now, are there exceptions? Absolutely. But when you have a guy come in, a businessman come in, and say, I want everything coming through me, including, by the way, an owner that says not only is general manager George Patton going to be involved in the coaching search, Patton says co-owners Rob Walton, Kerry Walton, and Condoleezza Rice are going to be part of the process. I want to repeat that. Helping to find your coach for the Denver Broncos is former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. Again, I ask you, say these things out loud. I know Condoleezza Rice is a football fan. She was on the college football playoff selection committee at one point. I think in its infancy, if I recall correctly. But are you kidding me right now? And I'm not saying it because Condoleezza Rice is a woman or that Kerry Walton is a woman. It has nothing to do with that. It's that you're taking non-football people and putting them in positions to try and fix a football situation that needs to be fixed by football people. By the way, the GM, George Patton, he's the one who hired Nathaniel Hackett, who the Broncos fired on Monday after their 51-14 loss to the Rams. Only the fourth head coach to be fired during the first season. History of the NFL. Different kind of history, but history nonetheless. We have to be better. I have to be better, Patton said. Sunday's game was unacceptable. It was embarrassing. Nowhere close to our standard. All that matters is winning. No one cares about excuses, and we're not going to make them. But what's interesting is the terminology that was used in the conversation today regarding Russell Wilson. First of all, they mentioned that Russell Wilson did not have a role in Nathaniel Hackett being fired. that Russell Wilson wasn't the reason for Nathaniel Hackett being fired. When the reality is that's exactly what happened. He didn't have to speak up and say he wanted Nathaniel Hackett fired. He was fired vis-a-vis the play of Russell Wilson. Look, this stuff, there are things about the NFL and play calling and, the intricacies of the game and where's this safety located on the field. There are intricacies of the game that can certainly confuse the lay person. You're watching the game, but you're not watching it at that sort of micro level. You're watching it at the macro level. But it's not all that complicated to figure out that the reason Nathaniel Hackett is collecting a paycheck to do nothing for the next few years, the reason he's going to be cashing paychecks and not doing a damn bit of work, unless he takes some sort of coordinator role, which I'm sure he can, the reason that's happening is because of Russell Wilson. It's because of how badly Russell Wilson played this year. It's because maybe he had a shoulder issue early in the year. Yeah, you can absolutely blame Nathaniel Hackett for week one opting for a 60-plus yard field goal attempt at the end of a game rather than putting the ball in the hands of his $250 million quarterback. You can absolutely blame that. But all in all, and I'll still say, that may have set the tone for this thing going south from the beginning. But at the same time, if Russell Wilson plays even a third better than he has this year, Nathaniel Hackett's not losing his job. But there's something very interesting in what was said today by management and ownership of the Broncos. They said they believe that Russell Wilson is fixable. Now, for somebody to be fixable, you're essentially also saying, without saying, that somebody's broken. And you're talking about a broken quarterback, a guy that's had physical issues, now a guy that's on a team that, by all reports, aren't really all that fond of him as teammates. You're talking about a 34-year-old quarterback that you're saying is broken, but fixable. Say all this out loud. Fixable. Broken. The opposite of fix, or the word that goes alongside fix, is broken, right? If something's fixable, it means it has to be broken. So you're admitting the quarterback you went and got and paid $250 million over 5 years for is broken. And if you are a Denver Broncos fan, that admission has to break you. It has to be devastating because now you have to count on the fact that an organization that went and got a quarterback who turns out was broken is the same organization that's going to go hire the head coach that's going to fix him. Again, do you think that's going to work out well? And you've got this guy for 5 years and tons of dead cap space if you want to cut him loose. So what's the answer? This team's not going to be good for a long time. I'm sorry. I know they're really good defensively. I think they're elite defensively, to be quite honest. But I don't think all the King's horses and all the King's men can put Russell Wilson back together again. I think you're talking about a situation where this organization and this franchise could be in the wilderness for a long time. Tell me anything. Look, it's one thing if they're not saying, hey, it's system related or anything. They told you today, the Denver Broncos organization told you today, our quarterback is broken, but he's fixable. He's going to work so hard to get it worked out. We're going to bring in the right head coach. Well, you didn't bring in the right head coach, and you haven't brought in the right quarterback. So how's your decision-making going so far? Tell me how that's working out for you so far. Oh, okay. How many wins you got this year? Oh, okay. What happened against the Rams on? Oh, okay. Yeah, how's that going? It's, again, common sense, rational thinking here, not fanboy goggles, tells you the Broncos are in a world of trouble. Not just for next year, but for several years down the road. Because when you make one catastrophically bad signing like Russell Wilson, you can send your franchise back 3, 4, 5 years. And let's even just say he's there for 3 or 4 years. Is there anything you've seen in Russell Wilson that tells you you're going to win a Super Bowl next year? No. Well, then he's going to be 35 the next year? No. 36? No. And it's just going to get worse. And by the time you've admitted to yourself that Russell Wilson isn't very good anymore, you're going to get a new young quarterback, and you got to wait 2 or 3 years for that one to develop. Now you're 7 and 8 years out. You get where I'm coming from? Good. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. We're going over to our friends, the same people we went to. My best friend Paul and his husband. We're going over there for New Year's Eve. We went there for Christmas dinner, and we're going over there for New Year's Eve. Pretty low key. How about you? Doing anything fun? Oh, joy. You got the 6 to midnight, baby. It's good times. Let me tell you, man. I did those holiday shifts for years in radio, so we've all had to live it. Ugh. I worked overnights for a long time in radio as a host, and it's tough. It screws you up. If you do it for a long time, it screws you up. Doing it for a little while won't kill you, but my body's never fully recovered. My sleep cycles and stuff have never fully recovered after working overnights for so many years. I used to do a 5-hour overnight show for NBC Sports Radio. 5 hours solo. Yeah. But I was also on some really big stations, too, which helped. Hey, what are you doing right now? Nothing, you say? Well, head over to playfortickets.com. Got to tell you about my friends at playfortickets.com. Right now, they've got going on one of my favorite things. It's called the Super Pick 7 Contest. And it's your chance to go to the NFL's biggest game this February in Glendale, Arizona. You know the one. It's super. Every Sunday of the NFL season, including the playoffs, gives you a chance to win, and it couldn't be easier. Here's what you do. Go to playfortickets.com and click on the Super Pick 7 contest. You'll see a big Play Now button, and it couldn't be easier. All you got to do is pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. That's it. Correct side and total on Sunday for 7 games. You do that, you could win 2 tickets to the NFL's biggest game in Glendale, Arizona this February, hotel, airfare, and oh yeah, $50,000 cash in your pocket. Again, that's the Super Pick 7 contest. And here's the best part. It's completely free. Free to sign up, free to play, free to make your picks. Everything about it is free. It's going on right now. Playfortickets.com, the Super Pick 7 contest. Go and check it out. 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions apply. That's how we wrap up hour number 2 of the show. One more hour to go on this Tuesday. What are we going to talk about? Well, you're going to have to turn around and listen. Chris Perkins will join us coming up in about 40 minutes. He's our 2 for 1 tonight. Talking about the Tua Tagovailoa concussion situation and more with him. Stick around another hour, the final hour of a Tuesday Back Page with Jason Page, the cash-in. Be right back. How's he doing?
He's alright. He's not scratching or anything. He won't scratch when he's lying down like this.
Yeah.
So when he's sitting up. I caught you.
When did you catch him?
Oh, earlier today.
Oh, earlier. Okay.
Should I put the cone on him?
What, while he's sitting here? It's up to you. I don't think so. You could always sit out here.
I'm watching my anime. So where's the cone?
I don't know. I don't think it's been on him all day, has it?
No. Where's your super expensive cone? Where did his cone go?
Sounds like a new promo. Nothing. I said a new promo. My husband in the background. My dog got his ass kicked at our dog sitter on Saturday night. Got attacked by a French bulldog, and was pretty beat up. 7 different wounds. It was bad. Yeah, he is. He's recovering. He's like a tank. Has a few dings on him, but convinced this dog is indestructible. It really is. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some that can be, but it was weird because this is a Frenchie that he's been at doggy daycare with for a while, and they've never had any issues. And then all of a sudden something happened, and the dog sitter turned around, and they were basically on top of each other. Something happened, yeah. It was bad. The Frenchie didn't get hurt at all. Yep. That he did. Wow. Braves signed Sean Murphy to a 6-year deal for $73 million. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great signing for the Rangers. No, and John Gray is your number 3. It's not bad at all. Yeah, no, they've got a nice front end of that rotation. All right, final hour of a Tuesday/Wednesday edition of the show. A history-making night in the NBA. Another day around the NFL that leaves you scratching your head. A day of some more very interesting baseball signings. I don't know if we'll get to all of it tonight, but we'll get to some of it for sure in the final hour of the show. The telephone number is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also tweet at the show. Feel free to do so. I am at The Back Page, again on Twitter, at The Back Page. We've got a great game wrapping up. They are midway through the fourth quarter. Warriors on top of the Hornets, 98-95. The live betting numbers, the Hornets plus 3.5 on the live betting line, plus 190 on the money line. The Warriors now minus 350 on the money line. The Hornets have jumped up to plus 255. The total is 225.5. And again, 6:20 to go in the fourth quarter there. You've also got Denver and Sacramento locked up in a good one. That one right now, 95-92 Denver, 4:12 to go in the fourth quarter. Sacramento is such an improved team. Could be a playoff team. And for people in Sacramento, I mean, that's got to be music to your ears when you consider where that franchise has been for the last decade. Denver minus 3.5 right now in the live betting line. Sacramento plus 230, the home underdog in the live betting right now. So looking for some value. Not a ton of it there, but Sacramento on the plus side as a home underdog, down 3 with 3:56 to go. Might be something you want to take a gander at. The big news of the night in the NBA was the performance by Luka Doncic. 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. And it leaves us asking our question of the night at 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. 800-224-2004. If you are starting an NBA team tomorrow and you could have anybody currently playing in the league, who are you starting with? I don't know if it's Luka. I think it could be Nikola Jokic. You want to sway me? Go ahead. Let's do it on the other side. More to do on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Yeah, I don't know if we're on in Dallas yet because we're on the Mavericks affiliate. So it depends if their post game is wrapped up or not. 30, man, no, not really. Not for a regular season NBA game. It's probably about 30. I was thinking it might be done by the top of the hour, but we'll have to see. Oh, sure. Playoffs, yeah. Continuing in this final hour of the show, one of the questions we're asking tonight at 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004, on Twitter as well at the back page. If you're starting an NBA team tomorrow, you can draft any player currently in the league. I'm not talking about Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson or anything. I'm talking about guys currently in the league. And I'm asking this just based on what we saw tonight with Luka and the 60, 21, and 10 performance. If you're starting a team tomorrow, who would you start it with? You only get one first pick. Everybody else gets the rest. I mean, who you taking? Because remember, by the time it gets back to you, there's 30 NBA teams? By the time it gets back to you, those guys ain't gonna be left anymore. Who you taking number one? You taking Luka? Taking Jokic? You taking Giannis? Taking Durant? I don't think you're taking Durant at this stage of his career, Harden at this stage of his career. I think the choice is probably between the three guys I just mentioned. It's probably between Jokic, Doncic, and Giannis. I don't know, maybe Jason Tatum's in the conversation too. He's doing some great things this year in Boston, coming into his own. He's sort of that Kobe Bryant type player. Who are you taking? 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. 800-224-2004. You can hit me up on Twitter as well with your thoughts there at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. We talked about the mess in Denver with the Broncos. We've talked about Tua and what's going on with the concussion situation and everything surrounding that. I haven't talked about J.J. Watt tonight. And I've tried to think all day about how to discuss the career of J.J. Watt on the news that he's retiring, 12th NFL season. Of course, so many great years in Houston with the Texans, and now playing out the string in Arizona with the Cardinals. And as much as I think about what he's done on the field, and he's a Hall. I mean, look. I was actually asking myself today this interesting question, and I'd have to go and do a ton of research to dig it out, but I'm sure people far smarter than me are already asking and answering this question. Is he if not the greatest, certainly one of the greatest defensive players to never win a Super Bowl? And think about it. Is he the Dan Marino of defensive players in the league? I mean, think about some of the great defensive players that have played the game and never won a Super Bowl. Jason Taylor, Derek Thomas. I mean, there's been some great players. Deacon Jones, one of the most feared men to ever put on a football jersey. But you start, Brian Urlacher is another one you could certainly put in the conversation. Champ Bailey. You go further back, you talk about Jack Youngblood and Anthony Munoz. And there's a lot of great players that have never won Super Bowls that were, Carl Eller's another one that comes to mind. Of course, Dick Butkus. One of the greatest defensive players ever. I mean, where would J.J. Watt go in that conversation if you start talking about guys that never won a Super Bowl? Junior Seau appeared in 2 Super Bowls. One with the Chargers, one with the Patriots. Never won one. It's just interesting. Bruce Smith, of course. An amazing career in Buffalo with the Bills. I mean, he was the Bills defensively. He played the game for 19 years. Never won a Super Bowl. So there's a lot of great guys you can put in that conversation, but without question, J.J. Watt belongs there. But as much as I think about J.J. Watt in terms of his accomplishments on the field, and maybe I'm just a sentimental fool this way, and I'm always looking for the deeper meaning or the other angle that people aren't talking about. And I mean, it's easy to talk about what he's done on the field, but what he's done off the field, his philanthropic work, his work for charity, and the list is countless. He's been a Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year winner. Won Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year, alongside a fellow Astro in Jose Altuve, fellow Houstonian, if you would. But what he's done off the field is just mind-blowing. And the one that comes to mind for me is Hurricane Harvey, 2017. All the damage in the Houston area. People, because we move from catastrophe to catastrophe in this country, people forget. And it was Katrina, and over 100 people died in Hurricane Harvey. 125 billion with a B. $125 billion in damage. In one of the darkest moments in the history of Houston. And J.J. Watt stepped up in the biggest way possible. Donated $100,000 of his own money to relief efforts. But that just barely scratches the surface. He raised over $40 million through crowdsourcing. Partnered with humanitarian organizations, Habitat for Humanity, one of the best out there, to help rebuild Houston homes. Give people shelter. Give people some sort of dignity. Food. The most basic essentials. And a whole lot more. So as great as a player as J.J. Watt was, and the moment he's eligible, he'll go into the Hall of Fame. They don't need a waiting period for guys like J.J. Watt. But it's just an unbelievable person. And that's what I think of. I mean, 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards for J.J. Watt. 5-time first-team All-Pro. 2-time second-team All-Pro. 5 Pro Bowls. Led the league in sacks in 2012 and 2015. Went over 20 sacks twice in his career. Led the league in sacks twice in his career. And even just the number of times he overcame injuries. As great as he was, and as well as he'll be remembered for what he did on the field, if not for injuries, it could have been a whole lot better. Played just 3 games in 2016, multiple back surgeries. Then a season-ending leg injury after just 5 games in 2017. A lot of guys would have just said, you know what, I'm good. I got my money. I'm good. A lot of people thought, basically his career was done after those 2 seasons of being injury-riddled. 2018, 16 sacks. Only guy who had more that year was Aaron Donald. And he was forcing fumbles at a ridiculous 7. League leading, forced 7 fumbles. And so was comeback player of the year that year. The only guy who was able to take it from him was Andrew Luck, for obvious reasons when you look at what Luck had dealt with the year before. But I mean, it's hard to look at J.J. Watt, and this is an all-time great. And I'm taking this amount of time in this segment to give him that because he's earned it. He deserves it. He's one of the greatest to ever play the game. And not just at any position, but one of the greatest to ever play the game. And you combine it with the contributions off of it, it's a really special guy. So he's got 2 games left on the road, which kind of sucks if you're a Cardinals fan, because he makes this announcement and you don't really get to give him a send-off in that final home game that you might have wanted to give him. And maybe he didn't want it. Maybe that's why he waited. Maybe he didn't want to have to deal with all the flowers and bouquets and the gifts and, getting the send-off on the field. Maybe he just didn't want it. Some guys don't want that because he announces it with 2 road games left. But congratulations to J.J. Watt, who is really a all-time special talent and even more so an all-time special person. All right, we'll update you on what's going on in the late NBA games. They are wrapping up as we speak. Stick around, a lot more to do in this final hour of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Have they told you anything about doing the podcast? Have they told you anything about doing the podcast for my show? But they haven't told you anything about, loading the podcast into the system or any of that? Oh, boy. Yeah, because this show's a little different. We don't take each hour and just load it in, because a lot of it is outdated because we're talking about games that are going on in the moment. So the way we usually do it is, and if they haven't shown you this, it's not even fucking worth it. Because I couldn't explain it to you from here. Somebody should have already told you how to do that. But, of course, God forbid they do that. So, yeah, don't worry about it. Just, there's no point. Yeah, basically we'd put in the most important segments of the show and you'd load those in rather than loading the whole hours. But that means you have to go and edit the segments of the show that I tell you to go edit, which I don't know if you can do or want to do. Yeah, exactly. I would just say load in all 3 hours. Yes. Because I'd rather there be something there than nothing. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the Warriors can't win for a damn on the road, but they can win at home. That continues to be the story of their season. Just a remarkable. They cannot win on the road. They are as bad a road team as there is in all of the NBA this year. But put them at home, they figure out a way. And tonight they do it again. No Stephen Curry. No problem. Warriors win 110-105. They're now 13. They'll be 14-2 at home. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. And you could tell me it's injuries, it's Curry, it's Wiggins, it's all these things. I'm sorry, that does not wash when you talk about a team home versus road. I don't think through, whatever we are, 34 games, 35 games into the season, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. A team that is this bad on the road and this good at home. Clay led the way tonight, 29 for the Warriors. Jordan Poole had 24. They're still playing without Wiggins and obviously without Curry. And I said that Denver-Sacramento game was a good one. Denver beat Sacramento tonight, 113-106. Jokic had a slow start in that game, finished with 20. 20, 11, and 9. One rebound short of a triple-double. Michael Porter Jr. with 30 tonight in the win for the Nuggets. Remember all the injury concerns with him when he was coming out of college? Everybody was worried, what was it, the back? And you don't want to screw around with that stuff. A lot of teams want to stay away from it. Big night for Michael Porter Jr. 30-6, averaging 16 on the season. And a big part of the reason why Denver was able to get that big win on the road against a Sacramento team that's been really good this year. And much improved. Denver 22-11 now on the season. And as you know, look, some teams got off to slow starts. Some teams have been, Phoenix up and down. The Warriors, just hovering around the 500 mark. Denver, slow and steady, wins the race. Not any huge headlines about the team. You're not hearing anything about them. But Denver's right there, like they are every year around this time. Go look at the NBA standings and where we are right now. Top of the Western Conference, there's Denver. I think the team that's surprised a lot of people out in the West is New Orleans. They haven't surprised me because before the season started, I thought that was the team to watch. If Zion stayed healthy, which he has, I thought the Pelicans would be extremely dangerous, and they are. They're around 500 on the road, but they're 14-4 at home. They've won 3 straight. I mean, look at the top of that conference. You got Jokic in Denver. You got Zion and Ingram in New Orleans. You got Ja with Memphis. And slowly but surely, the Clippers are starting to play into form. Everybody was worried about them at the start of the year, myself included, because Kawhi wasn't on the floor enough, which made it hard to gauge what that team could really do. But now that you're starting to see that entire team on the floor, all of a sudden they're a 4 seed out in the West. A 4 seed. 21-15 for the Clippers. And the biggest thing that jumps out to you about them, and also about the Mavericks, by the way, they both D up. They both allow less than 110 a game, which in this era of the NBA is doing pretty damn good. Clippers give up 108.6 a game. Mavericks giving up just shade under 110. And when you look in the East, again, the teams you want to look out for are those teams that can D up, because in the postseason, you're not going to, I tell you right now, you're not going to see 130, 125 in the playoffs. You're not going to see 120, 117 in the playoffs. You're going to see 105, 102. All this stuff that you're seeing during the regular season, I will put my money down where my mouth is on this. You're not going to see this racehorse basketball for 48 minutes or 42 minutes with 6 minutes of defense like you see now. You're going to see, just like baseball, regular season baseball and postseason baseball, 2 totally different animals. Guy struggles during the regular season on the mound. In a regular season baseball game, you say, maybe we'll get 6 out of them. Maybe we'll get 5 1/3 of, 3 or 4 run ball, and we'll hand it over to the bullpen. Go get us 100 pitches. Guy gives up 1 base runner in the 3rd inning of a 1-1 game, and they've got the bullpen up. Postseason basketball, postseason baseball, postseason anything is played differently than the regular season. Those are 2 sports, baseball and basketball. They're just not played the same way. The style of play, the decision-making, the coaching, the rosters in terms of rotations get smaller in basketball during the postseason. You're just not trusting as many guys. Derrick Rose got 12 minutes tonight for the Knicks. He's not getting 12 minutes if this is a playoff game. That's the difference in the way the game is played. I was talking earlier about the who you would take, and I was asking this question of the audience at 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you're starting an NBA team tomorrow, who's your number 1 pick? And you got to tell me why, too. Is it Luka? Is it Jokic? Is it Giannis? If there's another guy you want to put into that conversation, feel free. Is it Zion? Because when Zion's healthy, he's another one that on a night-in, night-out basis performs in a big way. I know he's gone through a little bit of a rough stretch here, but again, ultimately he's going to fall into a certain statistical category as we go throughout the year. But in the NBA right now, talking about MVP, let's see, player awards, MVP right now for the regular season. This is interesting because I threw him in as the fourth or fifth name of who you would start a team with if you were drafting right now. But look at the MVP odds. FanDuel Sportsbook has them. Jason Tatum right now is the favorite to win the MVP. And if I had given our producer engineer working the show tonight, Justin, who's with us for the first time working on the show, if I had given him 4 guesses, I don't think Tatum would have been one of the names out of his mouth. I don't think it would have been one of the first names out of your mouth. If I had said, tell me who you think is leading in terms of the odds for MVP, I don't think Tatum would have been one of the first names out of your mouth, would it? Yeah, see, I would have said Luka, I would have said Jokic or Giannis. Well, Jason Tatum is going off at plus 280. Giannis is going at plus 360. Luka's going off at plus 480. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me. I don't know how Luka's not above Giannis. And Jokic is going off at plus 500, even though he's won, the last 2 of them? I don't get it. What are Tatum's numbers? I've looked up everybody's numbers tonight. I haven't looked up Jason Tatum's numbers here. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick before we get to our interview with Chris Perkins. So on the season, Jason Tatum right now, I mean, he's putting up nice numbers. They're not Luka numbers. They're not Jokic numbers. But he's the best team, best player on best team. He's averaging 30.9, so almost 31 a game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and shooting 47.7%. I mean, that's great numbers. But you're going to tell me those numbers are better than Giannis, Luka, or Jokic? And then Durant is 5th in the betting odds right now at plus 850. Embiid, who's having a great year. We were just talking about Joel Embiid, who tonight in Washington against the Wizards had 48 and 10 for Embiid tonight. But the Sixers lost to the Wizards 116-111. Embiid is plus 1,100. And then there's a big drop-off after that. John Morant plus 3,000 and so on. But if you had given me if you had made me guess on who I would have thought the MVP favorite was right now, I would not have guessed Jason Tatum. I probably would have had him 4th on my list. And he's number 1. And I don't think he wins it. If you ask me right now through this point of the season who the MVP is, it's not Jason Tatum. And again, that's not me knocking him. It always gets into this thing, well, you're knocking my guy. No. It's like saying, do I want to pick a Mercedes, a BMW, a Corvette? They're all great cars. You're not going to lose with any of them. All right, Tua Tagovailoa, the concussion, the response to it, and what it means for the Dolphins as they get ready for the Patriots. Chris Perkins from the Sun Sentinel joins us next on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. I can make it easier for you, actually, just thinking about the podcast. Why don't you just take the first hour of the show? Yeah. The concussion in the interview, and just put that in the podcast. Let's just do that. Yes. Usually I will just tell you, I want that segment for the podcast. I want that segment for the podcast. I didn't want to overwhelm you with it being your first time doing the show, though. So just take the whole first hour, take out the commercials, and put in the podcast. All right. Cool. And I'll play the interview on this side. Just play the rejoin and the music, and I'll take care of it on this side for the interview coming up. Cool. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show, good to have you all with us. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show, good to have you all with us. We'll get back to the calls in a bit. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show, good to have you all with us. We'll get back to the calls in a bit at 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also hit me up on Twitter anytime at The Back Page. So obviously, the Dolphins are big news right now with the team trying to get into the playoffs. Also, the injury to Tua Tagovailoa, another concussion for him. Second time he's been in the protocol this year officially, although a lot of people believe he may have had a third concussion before he had the first, or a first concussion before he had the second, whatever you want to term it. So thought it was a good time to get this guy on. Chris Perkins is the Dolphins columnist over at the Sun Sentinel, somebody we like to lean on when we're going to talk some Dolphins. He joins us on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app on this Tuesday. Chris, I won't bury the lead here. Knowing what we do about the Tua Tagovailoa injury, and I mean, it's a blunt question, but should retirement be part of the conversation?
Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see till all the evidence is in and we know more facts. But look, everything is on the table right now, and that's kind of extreme, but that's the fact. That look, Tua Tagovailoa returning this season, that's a question mark. Tua Tagovailoa returning to the field at all, that's a question mark. But let's not be extreme. Let's see what the situation is when we know even whether he has a concussion right now. But look, we do know that this is the third head injury situation this season, right? Because of Buffalo, because of Cincinnati, and now because of Green Bay. So if you're the Dolphins and if you're Tua, the short term and the long term are both a question mark.
Yeah, I was watching Christine Brennan this morning. She was on CNN. It just happened to turn on CNN at the time that she was on. And she was taking Mike McDaniel to task over this idea that the team didn't know Tua had been concussed, despite the fact anyone watching the Dolphins game who saw him take that hit where his head smacked down on the turf, even people on social media looked at it and said, oh, my God, could have surmised there was a possibility of a head injury there. Do the Dolphins as an organization have some culpability here as it relates to Tua playing the remainder of that game with a concussion?
I don't know. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with Tua after the Buffalo game. And We saw that he was wobbly during that game, but we saw him in the post game. We saw him during the week. And so, look, I'm not the best judge of this. I'm not a neurologist. There are NFL people. Look, I will tell you this. I thought the NFL spotter jumped the gun in the Teddy Bridgewater situation against the New York Jets. And so that's one extreme, right, where they said that Teddy Bridgewater, after one play, he got that hit by Sauce Gardner. They said they saw a stumble when he got up to his feet. I didn't see a stumble. There's been a lot of video where we didn't see a stumble, and that's one extreme. And now you see this extreme where it looks like, yeah, well, maybe there was something that happened to Tua, but we don't know. Nobody flagged it, and so I don't know what the situation is with the NFL as far as the concussions or the head injuries or the spotter and anything like that. I think it's still a very unsettled situation, and you can call a lot of things into question. I don't know if the Dolphins would be culpable or the league or whoever, but I just think that it's a situation that's very fluid, and it's hard to identify what a flaggable situation is and what isn't.
I wonder, though, Chris, if now part of the calculus in this Tua situation, I wonder if some of the calculus on their part is the legal aspect, that there could eventually be. It doesn't have to be today. It could be a year. It could be 5 years from now, where if Tua's, walking around sipping peas through a straw, God forbid, the worst case scenario, that you are in a situation as an organization facing a lawsuit for hundreds of millions of dollars because somebody's going to claim you didn't do something right. So I wonder if beyond the protocol that's in place by the NFL, which, by the way, is insane that Dr. Sills today, the chief medical officer for the NFL, sat there and said, well, no, the concussion protocol doesn't change based on the number of concussions. Are you kidding me? How is it no different from concussion 1 to concussion 2 to concussion 3 that you would just have the same protocol in place? That seems nuts to me. But anyway, I digress. As an organization, and from a legal standpoint, looking down the road, do they treat this differently and try to force him to sit out the year, even if the protocol says he can return?
We don't know, Jason. That's the whole thing. That look, you could argue that the only reason that the league cares about head injuries is because of the CTE lawsuit and all of that, and that all of this is really because of that and not because they truly care about the player. I don't know really what the situation is, but I know that it's a fluid situation, and it's things change, and we're kind of feeling our way through this process. So, as far as who is responsible and, who is culpable and who gets the ultimate responsibility for a player coming into a game where it's a questionable situation, I don't know. But, look, I will say this, that for a player such as Tua, who has had, this is his third, let's just say, head trauma situation, right? Buffalo, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and you're a young father and you do care about your child and being a father, you've got to concern yourself with your future. And so really, I think that that's kind of where things start, not the legal responsibility of the Dolphins or the league. It's with Tua and what you want to do for your organization or for your family. And I'm not casting a judgment right now. This is a serious situation. I'm not saying whether he should lean one way or the other, but I'm saying that that's pretty much where we are with this thing. That we want to talk about football, and yeah, this is a football thing, but for Tua, there is a family thing riding on this. And so, strategically for Tua, is the quarterback sneak an option? Is the quarterback draw an option? Is a scramble an option? And if it's not, are you putting your team at a strategic disadvantage? And then are you, what about your family and your future? So I think for Tua, all of this stuff is on the table. And then for the Dolphins, do you sign them to a long-term contract? And then for the league, yeah, how do is the spotter responsible and all that? But really, let's boil it down to Tua and what are you going to do for your family and for your organization? Yeah, do you do a quarterback sneak and all that kind of stuff? Jason, I think that's also on the table here.
Chris Perkins, Dolphins columnist, Sun Sentinel, joining us here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. You brought up so many good points in that answer. And as much as I agree with you that it's on Tua, sometimes the organization has to protect the player from himself. The same way a boxing trainer will tell the referee in a boxing match, hey, no, he can't go on, even though the boxer's sitting there going, oh, no, I can keep fighting. It's sometimes up to the trainer in that situation to protect the fighter. And in this case, it might be up to the Dolphins to protect Tua from Tua if he feels like, hey, I want to still go out there and play. And I thought you just brought up a very great point that I didn't even think about. Forget even just the Dolphins. Knowing what people know. I mean, we're watching Carlos Correa go through this whole thing with an ankle injury and teams not wanting to give him a long-term deal. What NFL team is going to look at Tua and say, yeah, we're going to give this guy a long-term contract, knowing if he has one more hit, he's, essentially a walking vegetable. That's something I hadn't really thought of, broadening this conversation out, but it's a great point.
Yeah, Tua's got to think about this. The team's got to think about this. The league has got to think about this. And again, Tua's got to think about this as a father and a family man. And I don't know, where you draw the lines between concussions and CTE, but there's evidence. And so Tua's got to take that into account. And so, yeah, there's a lot of levels to this, Jason. And so, as we think about this, we can think about this on a lot of levels, but there are a lot of levels to this. And I'm not sure that we've really been confronted with something along these lines in the, I guess, CTE concussion aware era. But this is a big test case for the Dolphins. And look, let me say this from the Dolphins organizational standpoint. You've opened a 2 or 3 year window when you acquired Tyreek Hill. You acquired Teron Armstead. You acquired Bradley Chubb. And you gave first round picks up. And you decided to go with Mike McDaniel as your head coach, and you decided to stay with Chris Greer as your GM. You're kind of committed now. This is a 2 or 3 year window. You can't make a whole lot of changes. If you bring in, there's been people on Twitter, hey, do you fire Mike McDaniel and bring in Sean Payton? Sean Payton can't bring in another quarterback. You don't have first round picks. So you're kind of committed. You're kind of dug in. If you're the Dolphins, you've got to kind of make this thing work. So tentacles that spread all around from this CTE concussion aware era, Jason, that we're thinking about right now, this quarterback pass driven NFL era, it collides with the concussion CTE awareness. We'll see what happens. It's a very interesting situation.
Can this team make the playoffs with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback?
I do think that they can. Yes,
I agree.
I agree. You do. Now, listen, I'll say this, that this is not on the backup quarterbacks. I wrote a column today. I think that really this is on the backup quarterback to put you in a position to win in the fourth quarter, these next two games, New England and the New York Jets. But the heavy lifting has to be done by Mike McDaniel, your head coach, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Teron Armstead, Xavier Howard. These are the guys. The backup quarterback puts you in a position to win in the fourth quarter. These other guys have to deliver these victories and get you to the playoffs. So that's the situation, and I do think that Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson, the rookie 7th round pick out of Kansas State, either of them could keep this team in it in the fourth quarter to win. It's up to the highly paid, high-profile guys to deliver the victory.
Last one before I let you go. In your mind, what is the common denominator beyond the quarterback play here in the downward spiral over the last month or so? What is the common denominator to you in terms of what's troubled this team?
Well, I think the offense, you're really a big play offense, and you're a one-dimensional offense, right? You rely on Tua to Tyreek Hill, Tua to Jalen Waddle, and that's it. And if I'm another team, if I can focus all of my attention on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you really can't beat me. You don't have a run game. You don't have other receivers. You don't go chain to chain to chain to chain. You go big play. And if I can shut down those two guys, I think I got a chance to beat you. And I think that's been what San Francisco and the LA Chargers and the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers have done, that we've seen them have big plays, but not consistent big plays on offense. The Dolphins have not controlled time of possession. If they don't have those big plays on offense, you shut that offense down, they're not going to outscore you. So I think that you've got to develop a run game and you've got to develop a move the chains type offense, and that's when the Dolphins will be tougher to beat.
See how the Patriots handle it this weekend against the Dolphins and vice versa. Chris Perkins, Dolphins columnist, Sun Sentinel, giving us some time during a holiday week. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year in advance. We'll talk to you in 2023. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anytime, Jason.
We're coming back to wrap up the hour next. Bomb, 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 bomb. Who's your favorite play-by-play guy? Come on, man. You want to do play-by-play for a living? You don't know who your favorite play-by-play guy is? Are you shitting me right now? He's great. Should get him on. I'm friends with the guy that oh, man. Getting set to wrap things up on this Tuesday. You don't bring somebody on and make them do their catchphrase. Come on. Just imparting some wisdom on our newbie tonight, Justin, who's producing and engineering the show. was talking about, I said, I used to talk to Mike Breen quite a bit. I used to get him on my shows and things of the like. Now a Hall of Fame announcer with ABC and ESPN. This was years ago. This was over 10 years ago where I had his number, and I was saying I don't have his number anymore. And Justin goes, get him on the air and have him do a bang for you. And I'm like, really? Come on, Justin. Come on, man. You don't bring on legendary announcers. It'd be like me saying, hey, Marv, can you give me a yes? Before the end of the interview. I got to interview Marv about right before the Olympics in, gosh, was it 2014? 2015, I don't remember, but I got to interview Marv when I was with NBC Sports, and thrill of a lifetime. And then I got to meet him. I happened to be at a Jets. It was a regular season or a preseason game for the Jets in the brand new, MetLife Stadium. And I got to meet Marv. He happened to just be in the press box hanging out watching the game. And I got to meet Marv Albert. And it was just like, wow. Especially for a kid like me who grew up wanting to be a play-by-play guy, meeting Marv was just, that was it. I grew up, imitating Marv Albert. Who didn't if you were into sports, even if you didn't want to be an announcer? Just larger-than-life figure. So, very cool. That's going to do it for us on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thank you to Justin, producing for us for the first time and engineering for us for the first time. Yeoman's work well done on this holiday week. Hopefully we'll see you down the line. Thanks to all of you for listening. Stay safe. I know it's crazy weather still out there. We're back with you on Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. For the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, I'm Jason Page. Bye! All right. You got the stuff for the podcast and you're all set. All right? Okay. All right. Cool. All right, guy. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you down the line. Be well. All right. Thanks. Bye. What is going on with this thing? That was bizarre. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening, loving. Have a great night. We'll see you all back here on Wednesday, hump day. Make sure to check out the podcast anywhere you get your Cash In podcast. And that's it. I'm done. I go take my dog for a walk and enjoy the rest of the night. I'll see you all later. Bye.